Welcome to this edition of Footprints in American History. I'm Jeff Dial, and before I go any further, I want to first of all let you guys know that this video is very special to me. This is a special occasion. The reason is this video is my 50th video on Footprints in American History, so applause please. I thought I'd make it there. I launched the channel on January 16th, 2021, and here we are 14 months later with a new video. And I'm just so honored. Thank all of you for watching my videos and subscribing. It means the world to me that I actually have these people that are watching these videos and supporting me, and here I am 50 videos later, and I'm hoping to go into the hundreds. I really am. I want this channel to be more and more special as time goes. So let's get to the story. We're going to talk about the Bonnie and Clyde death cart. Now, I originally was just going to do a two-part series on Bonnie and Clyde. The first one is going to actually be the next video. That was shot last summer in Dallas, Texas. It's an on-location video. I went with a friend, my friend Randy Gates, drove me around the DFW area to 3 locations in Dallas and 1 in Ponder regarding Bonnie and Clyde. Now, Ponder is where Clyde robbed his first bank. That's featured in the 1967 movie about Bonnie and Clyde. But also, he took me to 3 locations in Dallas. I saw Bonnie's grave, I saw Clyde's grave, and I saw the home that Clyde's father owned, that he grew up in. And you can still see where the gas pumps were and everything. The house is still there in Dallas. So, to give you a little backstory on Bonnie and Clyde, they were a couple that fell in love in the early 1930s. Clyde had just gotten out of prison and he fell in love with Bonnie. It was just an instant attraction to each other. She definitely liked the outlaw type. She was waitressing in Dallas at the time. Now, what happened from there was that they ended up going through several states in the central U.S. They went through Oklahoma, they went to Iowa, they went to Missouri, Texas. They did do New Mexico a little bit and some of these other states, but it was mainly those areas. It was probably more 4 states than any that they really focused their robbing efforts on. Now, when I say robbing, they didn't really do banks that much. Now, he did rob a bank in Ponder, as I explained, but he also was more focused on robbing small convenience stores, just little small mom and pop stores and gas stations. That's what he liked to focus on. As time went, they ended up building an arsenal of weapons, and nobody really knew who they were for quite a while, even though they were committing murders and all these robberies. There were other people in the country doing it, but what made them famous was that they had to get away at one point, and they left this hideout that they had been hanging out in. Well, there was a camera with several rolls of undeveloped film. The cops developed it, and what happened was now they knew what the couple looked like, and that got published nationwide. So it was pretty much the beginning of the end for this couple once that happened, because now that people had seen their faces in the papers all over the country, they were wanted people. Unfortunately, with that, the legend began growing. The law people hated them, but the people loved them. People genuinely loved them. There was just this fascination with the outlaws that they were, and they just grew in popularity. So there was actually a lot of people in the world around the United States that were just really supporting them, and just because of that fascination with them. So in the end, they got a guy named Frank Hamer involved to be able to figure out how to bring them to justice. Law enforcement people in Texas and other states, because they were from Dallas, they were embarrassed. They had already lost a total of 9 policemen. They had also seen 4 civilians killed, innocent civilians killed by them. So they were definitely not an innocent couple by any means, and law enforcement wanted them brought down. Well, Frank Hamer, with some help with other people, started tracking him, and he discovered that Clyde was actually a little bit on the predictable side. They would go every so often to visit family, and he noticed their movements, and what happened was he started trying to figure out, okay, where will they be this time? Where will they be this time? And He figured out at some point they're going to be coming through Louisiana. So he got some aid from some people in Louisiana also. In the end, they went to a place called Bienville Parish, Louisiana, which is actually going to be the site of the third video I want to do. That will be in the future though. That video is going to be the actual site where they lost their lives. Now, that was where they decided they were going to ambush them. They figured Clyde and Bonnie would be coming through there at some point, and that's where they wanted to take them out. But they were taking no risks. They had a lot of ammunition, and they hid in the trees. Now, they had somebody that was friends with Clyde. They were going to set him up. They had the person agree to pretend he's fixing a flat tire. Figured at some point Clyde would pull over to help him out, and that's when they were going to ambush him. That's exactly how it worked. Now, law enforcement, they're getting ready to give up for the day. They figured, okay, Clyde's not coming. All of a sudden, toward the very end, when they were about ready to give up, they heard the sound of an engine. They looked off, and here comes Clyde and Bonnie riding in this car. Bonnie's eating a sandwich. Clyde's driving. And sure enough, they see this person they know. He pulls over to help them. But before they can get out of the car, 6 lawmen, including Frank Hamer, come out of the bushes and the trees, and they just begin firing. And they did not spare any ammunition. They fired 130 rounds of ammunition, of which 112 hit the car. So Clyde was killed instantly by the first bullet. It went straight into his head. He was killed instantly. Bonnie was screaming, and then they ended up getting her because of all the bullets that were coming into the car. Out of that 130, as I said, 112 bullets penetrated the vehicle. So the story is not simply just with Bonnie and Clyde, however. Just to backtrack a little bit, I did want to tell you regarding this car, it was stolen. Now, Clyde loved to steal his vehicles. His vehicle preference was the Ford Deluxe. It was a V8 engine, and it was considered faster than most police cars. Most police cars had vehicles that only had about 45 horsepower. They weren't really super fast, whereas what Clyde had was pretty much a bat out of hell. So what happened was he had this vehicle that he had stolen from a lady in Wichita, Kansas, and he was so impressed with the Ford engines, the vehicles that Henry Ford was producing, that he actually even wrote him a letter. And I'm going to read this letter to you real quick, because this letter is actually on display at the Ford Museum in Detroit. And he wrote this in hand paper. It says, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 10th April, Mr. Henry Ford, Detroit, Michigan. Dear sir, this is Clyde speaking. While I still have got breath in my lungs, I will tell you what a dandy car you make. I have drove Fords exclusively when I could get away with one. Maybe he meant stealing from that. For sustained speed and freedom from the trouble, the Ford has got ever other cars skinned, and even if my business hasn't been strictly legal, it don't hurt anything to tell you what a fine car you got in the V8. Yours truly, Clyde Champion Barrel. They got killed. Bullets took them out. They were dead. Frank Hamer got the person he was assigned to go out and get. He had actually been retired. They asked him to come out of retirement. His commission had not been over yet, so he agreed to help find them. He was absolutely the best man for the job. So now they've got their kill. They've got the couple that's been killing law enforcement and embarrassing them, and also killed 4 civilians. So what happens now is that Frank and one other person have to go into town. They have to phone this in because it happened out in the rural area where they were killed. So they go into town to phone in. Now, in the meantime, 2 of the people that had done the ambush were assigned to watch the car. Word gets out quickly, and a crowd started drawing up. So here's these 2 law enforcement people trying to protect this vehicle, which is basically evidence, trying to protect them. And this crowd comes up, and they get overwhelmed with these people coming in. They cannot control the people. I'm going to read you the account of what happened and just how absolutely crazy it got after that when these people showed up, this crowd. This is from Wikipedia. Crowd soon gathered at the spot. Galt and Alcorn were left to guard the bodies, but they lost control of the jostling, curious throng. One woman cut off bloody locks of Parker's hair and pieces from her dress, which were subsequently sold as souvenirs. Hinton returned to find a man trying to cut off Barrow's trigger finger and was sickened by what was occurring. Arriving at the scene, the coroner reported nearly everyone had begun collecting souvenirs such as shell casings, slivers of glass from the shattered car windows, and bloody pieces of clothing from the garments of Bonnie and Clyde. One eager man had opened his pocket knife and was reaching in his car to cut off Clyde's left ear. They did get the crowd under control, but it just tells you how bad it was. It didn't get any better when they had to bring this car, tow it into the nearby town, and they had thousands of people show up just to see these people that had been so famous in the paper for so long. Now we're going to go into the details of the car, because this is actually quite a wild story of what happened to the car after that. The car was owned by a lady named Ruth Warren. She was from Topeka, Kansas. Clyde had stolen the car. When they found the car after the ambush, they found an arsenal in there. There were a lot of weapons. Now, regarding the police that were supposed to deal with this, they had been promised that they were going to be able to split 6 ways, $26,000. In the end, that never happened. A lot of the people that were helping fund the reward reneged. So what happened was 6 officers ended up sharing $200 apiece and anything that they had gotten out of the vehicle. And one of them got a fishing rod. There were several other things that they had gotten, and a few of them were sold as souvenirs for tiny little prices, just to say. However, Ruth, her car was stolen. Her car was now nationally famous, but she still wanted it back. They were trying to keep it from her, and she challenged it legally. She won the case, and now she has his car back. But the car she has gotten back now is bullet riddled with 112 bullet holes, and on top of that, it still has blood in it and skin fragments, things like that. So she doesn't know what to do with it. Well, she ends up letting a person lease it from her, and this person who leased it from her was a show salesman, and what happened was he was doing shows around the country. He ended up defaulting, so she ended up getting the car back. She ended up leasing it from there to another person. This person had actually kept it. He ended up buying it from her, and he bought it from her ultimately for $3,500. Now that car had quite a history. It traveled around the country. It had gone to the Museum of Antique Autos in Princeton, Massachusetts. It had toured carnivals, flea markets, and fairs for a period of about 30 years. In fact, there were even 6 fake death cars out there. One of them was one of the ones used in the movie in 1967 with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. From 1940 to 1952, this one person, he had been a carnival operator, and he let it go to this carnival in Cincinnati. It stayed there from 1940 to 1952, and people could actually pay to go see it. And so it stayed in Cincinnati, but then it got sold again. At one point in the 1970s, there was a racetrack in Nevada, and they were letting people sit in the car for $1 a piece. So this car actually had quite the history. It did sell at one point for $14,000, and then 1988, it ended up going to a show at the old Arlington ballpark, which was where the Texas Rangers played. And it was on display there, and what happened was later that year, 1988, it was bought by a property company that operated resorts, and they bought it for $250,000. The car currently is at Whiskey Pete's Resort Casino in Primm, Nevada. It's 35 miles south of Las Vegas. And it's still on display. It's like a little museum they have there. We can go in and still see the car. However, it's one of those things where you can't touch it. It's not like where you in the 1970s where you could sit in the car for $1. So the car actually has just as interesting a history as Bonnie and Clyde did. In the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and share the video. subscribe to the channel, and also ring the bell if you get the chance to subscribe to the channel, and ringing the bell will also give you notifications of future videos coming up. If you get the chance, also take a look at my other channel, Just a Bit Outside. Those are also some historical videos. They are a little bit more international in nature, but I also have some videos that are not history related that I think you'll enjoy. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for joining me on my 50th video, and fair winds and following seas.
Just a bit outside.